What's up, folks? Gabe Montgomery here, 10 Horse Money YouTube channel, and we do a Monday night live stream. Monday nights at 7:30 Central. We have a bunch of different guests on here. We do a giveaway on that live stream, and the giveaway goes like this. Somewhere during the live stream, we mention Sasquatch. We make a reference to Sasquatch, and the viewers gets a number between 1 and 200. We've already picked a number between 1 and 200. Whoever picks that number gets the giveaway. Most of the time, our guests have not seen a Sasquatch, nor do they have any Sasquatch stories, but every once in a while, somebody does have a Sasquatch story to share with us, and that's what this video is about. We've got 4 short Sasquatch stories, very interesting. One from Cody Huff, one from Matt Pangrac, one from Matt Stefan, and one from Dion Hibdon. Hope you enjoy this. Give me a thumbs up if you appreciate the content. Subscribe to the channel. Here we go. The question that's been kind of chewing in my brain for the last hour and some change is, have you ever had any sort of like Sasquatch sighting or anything up in your neck of the woods? Got any stories about Sasquatch?
Yeah, you can. So I early on in my YouTube channel, which has only been around for like a year or so, I did talk about it a little bit, but it's a funny story, and it's one that a lot of people ask me about, and it has to do with, I was driving up to northern Wisconsin. I was with my team partner, so it wasn't just me, and I'm very thankful it wasn't just me, but we were driving from my house in central Wisconsin up to the Hayward, Wisconsin area to fish a tournament on the Chippewa flowage. And it was, like fallish time, but, not super late fall. So, I mean, we were driving, we left my house at like 3 o'clock, and we got to this town of Phillips. It's a small town in Wisconsin, and I've got some back roadways that I go to avoid driving through the town. And I made a turn onto one of these back roads. And, I don't know, 100 yards in front of me, 50, 200 feet to 300 feet in front of me, right in the middle of the road, there was a big black object. Okay. And it was, I want to say it was around like 5:30-ish, but keep in mind, in northern Wisconsin, 5:30 it's not dark at that point. It wasn't like the sun was up, but it's you can see just fine. And at the same time, I make the turn. At the same time, my team partner and I both go, bear, because that's what we thought it was a black bear, which we see a lot. Well, at that point, the thing in the middle of the road, I realized at that point his butt was facing the car, and it looked over its shoulder back at the car, stood up on 2 feet, and bolted into the woods faster than I've ever seen any human being run. And, this was no small object either. It was quite large. So my partner and I both were driving, and we didn't say a word for a while. And after like 20 minutes, I just kind of went, if I didn't know better, and he finished my sentence, he's like, I'd say we saw Bigfoot. And it became a joke kind of the rest of that weekend, like during the course of the tournament. And, it would joke in terms of like, we kept bringing it up, being like, maybe it was Bigfoot and blah, blah, blah. Well, I got home, and I was talking to my ma after that weekend, and telling her how, we saw a bear, but maybe, we joking about it being Bigfoot. And she's like, well, have you ever heard of a Bigfoot sighting in Wisconsin? And I was like, no, I haven't. So me being a big dummy, I go and do what anybody would do, and I Google it, right? Bigfoot in Wisconsin. Well, there's one hotbed place for Bigfoot sightings, and it's Phillips, Wisconsin. So much so that the town has nicknamed him Big Phil. So I'm like, this is just ridiculous now. So in my Google searching, I came across a website that was called the BFRO .com, Bigfoot Researchers Organization, I think.
Yep.
And I really am not a Bigfoot guy. I would rather have not seen what I saw but I felt like maybe somebody would be interested in this. So I filed a report on there. And I got a call, and I was working my corporate job at the time. And I got a call while I was sitting there on a number I didn't know. So I didn't answer it. And they left a message, and it was this guy saying he's from the BFRO. He got my sighting. It's the best sighting he's seen in years. And he handles the Wisconsin region. And he was going to go camp there for 2 weeks. And I needed to call him back to confirm something before he could actually make it go live on the website. And he's like, call me back whenever. Seriously, I have nothing going on. Call me whenever. I have nothing going on. And I remember I played that for a bunch of coworkers, and we all laughed about it. And I never heard anything more about it for a couple of years. And then I was driving to a tournament, and I had the Finding Bigfoot like assistant director or executive director reach out to me and say they were coming to do a show in Wisconsin, and they wanted to have me on it because I had one of the better, more recent sightings. So at that point, I kind of I was talking to her. I'm like, well, I'm not really looking for 5 minutes of fame, but I got to ask, does it pay anything? And they said, no, it doesn't pay anything. And I'm like, well, could I wear like a Bridgeford shirt on the show? And she's like, well, you could wear whatever you wanted as long as it wasn't like, offensive. And I'm like, let me make some calls and see, maybe I've got a sponsor that wants me to do it. And I called up, I talked to the people at Bridgeford, and they were like, you realize Bigfoot is not our deal. Like, we're not fans of Bigfoot. And I'm like, I know Jack Lynx and Sasquatch and all, but I'm like, I gotta ask, right? And they're like, yeah, they're like, that's not our deal. And I called up my buddy who owns Dirty Jigs, and I was like, Kurt, what do you think about this? And he's like, you gotta do it. You gotta do it.
It's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Don't wear my shirt, but you gotta do it. And at that point, I looked at him. I said, you want me to do it just to make fun of me for years to come? And he goes, absolutely. And I'm like, that's it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, he had a jig color called Sasquatch. He was just needing a name for it.
So I don't know what I saw, guys. I mean, I can tell you this. I've seen lots of bears. I've never seen anything get up on 2 feet and run on 2 feet like I saw that day. And I'm just happy it wasn't me. I'm happy that, one of my good friends saw it as well. And I don't know. I don't know what
that's a really cool story. So have you been back to that area at all since then?
Oh God, every time I drive to my parents' cabin, I take the same route. And I tell you what, I always have my eyes open. And again, it's one of those things I almost wish I hadn't seen. And I'll tell you what, guys, now if I'm in the woods by myself and I hear a squirrel running through the leaves, I have chills go up my back. Like, I would it's almost like I would rather have not seen what I saw, because what I saw gives me the chills. Like, it was weird. That's all I got to say.
I'm going to tell you how bad it was with me. My wife redid our sidewalk because my path, what I consider a path and what she considers a path, two different things. All right. My path, you better not have much of a swagger to you, or you're going to get step in the snow. Simple as that. Her path, Andre the Giant could have walked down through there, or Sasquatch could have walked down through there. It wouldn't have changed anything. See, I'm tired of waiting. I got to see who's going to win this damn thing.
Well, speaking of, because you just dropped the word here, you got a story?
A Sasquatch story?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want me to tell you that thing about Peyton again, do you?
Oh, yeah.
I do, man.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Oh, now he'll probably kill me over this.
Well,
we were at Kentucky Lake. Okay. Now before I tell you this, I'm just going to tell you, if you know anything about Sasquatch, look up Land Between the Lakes. Tons of sightings and stuff. All kinds of creepy things happen on Land Between the Lakes. All right. Well, my son was in Kentucky Lake, way up towards Paris, and on the Land Between the Lakes side, way up in a creek. All those creeks do the same thing. They go up in, they're big, wide bays. but there's always a little creek that takes off and runs a couple miles up in the woods. Hayden was up in one of them. He had went way up in that creek, caught a few fish, and got way up in one to where about to where he couldn't get his boat turned around. Got up in there, and he heard something walking through the water ahead of him. So he's a natural hunter. I mean, he's hunted and fished his whole life, so he stopped to listen. And needless to say, when he stopped and quit making any noise at all with his boat, he heard it stop. And he thought, oh, that's a little creepy. You know, it knows I'm here. And so he sat there for the longest time, and it never did anything. And so he decides, well, he's going to creep on forward a little bit. So he hits the trolling motor and goes moving on forward. As soon as he does, it starts moving again. And he said it definitely sounded like it was a person. And you know, he didn't think anything about it. He's a big old burly bugger, just like me, you know. And then the first thing you know, he hears like two rocks clacking together. When he hears these two rocks clacking together, he's like, hey, I have heard that noise when Dad watches YouTube sometimes. And he said, so he stopped dead in his tracks, just quit going. He's like, wait a minute, that's weird. Even if that is some old boy up there guarding his still or something, clacking two rocks together, that's not natural, okay? He doesn't sit there 30 seconds after it clacked those rocks together till back down the creek behind him. He said, might have been 400 or 500 yards. It's a long ways back down the creek. Something starts clacking rocks together back there. So he's thinking, okay, now I'm in between these two things, you know? And he said they were clearly communicating. Whatever they were, whether it was rednecks or whether it was Sasquatch, they were clacking two rocks together. So he goes to backing down that creek as fast as he can till he can get his bass boat spun around. And when he gets her spun around, he said, making all that racket, you know, with his trolling motor and stuff, he said, really hadn't heard a whole lot. And he said, so he sat there for just a minute after he got spun around, and he's got everything laid down. He's laid his rods in the boat down and everything, strapped them down, because he's thinking, if I'm going to get eaten by a Sasquatch, he's going to have to do it with me on plane. And so he sits there and listens a little bit, and he said the next time he heard the rocks clack together, they're about 100 yards from him, one on one end of him, one at the other end of him. So he sat down, he fired up that Mercury, and he jumped his Camus up on plane, and he drove it out of that little narrow creek, you know, and left out of there on plane. He said some of the turns were so sharp that he roostered up on the bank and got up on the bank. And he said, but at no time did I ever lose plane. And he says, I drove that some gun clean out of there. And so, yeah, that's the only time that any of my crews ever been close to a Sasquatch. But, and that may have not been what it was, but since then, he got in and he came right straight to me on the water, which he never does. You know, when we're out there practicing, we don't talk till we get to the launch ramp. And he called me and he came right straight to me. And when he came right straight to me, I thought, he's buggered up. something has happened, you know. And he drove right straight to me, and he goes to telling me the story. And while I'm sitting there, I pull out my phone and I just put up Land Between the Lakes, Sasquatch. There's thousands of stories about Land Between the Lakes and creepy critters like that. And needless to say, I don't think he ever fished in there the rest of the week. I mean, he says, man, I sure am glad I didn't find him over there. So, but yeah, he fished on the other side of the lake the whole rest of the week.
I bet he did. I bet he put as much water as he could in the creeks. That creek, and yeah.
Well, we do have a winner.
Oh, sweet.
Cody
Domes. Congratulations, Cody. That's cool, man.
Number 16.
That is cool.
Sweet.
I'll get that out to you sometime this week. That's a good deal. Yeah, those Sasquatches were probably saying that's a really nice looking Camus there.
That is a sweet looking Camus.
That's a sweet looking Camus.
Got that pretty blue wrap on it.
So what about in all your adventures, have you ever ran across a Sasquatch? Here's the big question, man. What's your Sasquatch story, man? I know you got one out there.
Yeah. I told it one other time on Travis Manson's deal, and I was like kind of hesitant because I like literally think I had one that was like, hey, get out of here. We were in Alaska on the Talchalitna River, and my buddy Owen, I played hockey with him at OU. His dad owned Alaska West Air, and they have like helicopters and beavers and otters that like we have cars, right? So we got this helicopter, and we're way in the middle of nowhere. There's no one within like 100 miles of us. I mean, literally in the middle of nowhere. It's just me, Owen, and his dad fishing from the riverbank. And, you know, they got guns and stuff because they're worried about bears, right? And we don't hear anything. And all of a sudden, this tree behind me, like 20 yards in the woods, it's like this perfectly alive tree just goes, boom! It's just gone. Like ceases, like pushed over.
Is this in the daytime?
Yes, we're fishing. And they're on the other side of the river, and they're like, and now it's time to get on this side of the river now. And I was like, what the heck was that? And stuff. And I'm like, I wasn't even, and they're like, get over here now. And then another tree just goes, whoa, like big trees.
Dang.
And we got the hell out of there. Like he had the gun and like loaded it. And I was like, what was that? And they were like, probably a bear. And then Owen was like, or a Sasquatch. And that's like how they do their territory, like to get the heck out of there. It's like push trees over and stuff.
So, okay. So had those guys been up there before in that area?
Yeah. Like they think they're there.
Yeah.
It was,
so they truly
it was like a bear or a Sasquatch. That's what they said. Not like or a Sasquatch, wink wink.
Yeah.
Like they were like, yeah, like we don't stick around when that stuff starts happening.
Yeah, because bears typically don't push down big trees.
No.
I mean,
no.
Not typically.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
did you smell anything?
No.
Hear
fishing,
any,
man. No,
hear no noises or anything like that? Okay.
That's my Sasquatch story. I didn't physically. It's not like a Matt Stefan Sasquatch story where there's like a Sasquatch having a 4-course dinner in the middle of the road.
He was on our stream and he told that story. So you're only the second person that has had actually a story on this live stream.
I'm not saying mine was a Sasquatch.
No,
story, no, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, the crazy part about Matt was we didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know he had a Sasquatch.
He had a run-in with a Sasquatch.
He didn't have one. He had like the run-in. Like
yes, he thought we were setting him up, you know, because we talked about before we went live when we were in the queue. We're like,
I did the same thing too, and then I realized it was part of the show.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, this is because of me, isn't it? I'm like, no, you got a story, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, cool, man. You got any Sasquatch stories from your neck of the woods down there?
Not many. The one I saw, I about hit. You know, I think it was a squatch, but I don't know what else it could have been. It was just that a really big human. At a weird time of night, like 2 a.m. coming.
Oh wait. So you gotta back up. You gotta start from the beginning. Where were you coming from, and lead us into the story? We don't get a lot of Sasquatch stories.
Man, coming from Bull Shoals, headed home from a night tournament, like 2 a.m. I don't know what I saw, but something at the end of a guardrail that was really tall, taller than my truck, and really dark looking. And I almost hit it. It scared the heck out of me. I don't know what it was.
So did you just keep on rolling, or did you slow down? And
oh, I wasn't turning around for nothing. I made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I just kept going. Down here where we live, we're in the middle of nowhere. So I was just going to keep on heading to the house.
Were you in a remote area, or were you coming through, you know, were there houses around, or was it just
everywhere here's remote? Yeah,
that's true.
There's no houses or anything like that. We were in between the only 2 towns between the lake and home.
Huh. So did you make a mental note of where it was at roughly?
Oh yeah. I looked the next day and I went through there and I was like, yeah, they had just been brush hogged by the state. I was like, there's nothing. It wasn't a tree or anything. There was something really big standing there whenever I went by, and I don't know what it was.
So did you get out and go like take a hike, or, you know, and go look around in the woods or anything?
I was out.
You still travel that same road?
I do. I put a new bumper on my truck, just beefed up bumper guard in case I see him again.
You put a Squatch bumper on there instead
I
of a
put me in a
cow
Squatch
catcher?
guard.
Squatch guard.
That's what Johnny Morris needs to come out with, a new Squatch guard for all the
Bingo.
big trucks around there.
I had to get an Iron Cross Squatch guard.
That's awesome.